but it's okay. It just reaches more people this way. So, just waiting for Amazon to connect, and then we will share. So, yeah. Talk about all the good things you have coming up and all your past goodies.
Yeah, we might. The past might be better. I've got a lot in the
You've got
pipeline.
so many great books. You guys, welcome back. This is Lexi Blake. She is our newest guest today. I've had her on the show before. She is an amazing romance writer. If you have not read any of her stuff, you are not going to want to miss this interview today. So buckle up. I'm going to introduce you to Lexi Blake. Lexi, tell us a little bit about yourself. You've written so many amazing books. Tell us a little bit about you.
I live in North Texas. I write pretty much as a full-time profession. I got into romance when I was very young. My mom was into it, and I read a few books of hers that I probably should not have read at 14. But it set me on this path, and I've written pretty much every way you possibly can write, and romance is where my heart lies.
Yeah. Well, I love your book so much. I've recently fallen down a rabbit hole with your Three to Ride, that series. We were just talking about that, and that's one of your oldies but goodies. So, but you currently have this series right here. Tell us a little bit about Bayou Sweetheart and just, Major and that whole. I mean, this is I think you have 6 books in there. Is there more?
It'll be 6 when the 6th book comes out in March.
Yes. So I actually have that here that you guys can pre-order, Bio Beloved, and you can pre-order that. I have that pulled up so that you can pre-order it. So that will be delivered to your device on the night of its release. So tell us a little bit about this series and how you got started with it.
So I kind of got started with it in Masters and Mercenaries, which is probably the series I'm best known for. I had this character named Remy, and I really wanted to do kind of a Cajun bodyguard. But it turned out, like, as he had been in the series for a little while, he I don't know, you kind of spoke to me and told me about this little town he was from called Papillon, which is in far southern Louisiana, and this kind of crazy small town came up. I love writing them. I adore writing these little towns because they're little microcosms of the universe. And that's where that kind of came from. His family was back there. He ends up going home. And that's how we ended up in Papillon.
Which is funny because I used to live in a little town in Nebraska and we called it Papillion. But I mean, I know that's like the French pronunciation.
Yeah.
In Nebraska, they don't really do that. But in the South, in Louisiana area, the Creole Cajun area, that's the whole French vibe. So love this so much. We were talking about the butterflies and how monarchs are such a symbolic thing for me. And I have to say, you have the prettiest covers. Whoever is doing your covers, give them a raise.
Berkeley does a really, really good job with those. I love those dogs. And I was joking earlier in the year, I was at Readers on the River, and I was joking that, I would like to bring along a cover model, and I would like that cover model to be the corgi who
I
is.
was just thinking, let it be.
I would like to bring along that little smiling corgi who is on who's on Bayou Sweetheart, because I think he would do. I could just see a row of really handsome men and the corgi,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think the corgi would get just as much attention.
I can see your vision so clearly. Yes, and you have dogs on almost on every cover.
Yeah, on every cover of this.
So
yeah.
She's got you covered, whether you're a black lab, German shepherd, yellow lab, all the things. So
all the dogs.
Yes, all the
dogs play a big part in each book. Either the main character or one of the other characters has a dog who ends up kind of playing a big part in that. Dogs kind of, I might like them a lot.
Yeah. I'm the same. I have a rescue, and I've kind of collected all the neighbor dogs as well, weirdly enough. They're always here. I'm always pet sitting, or they just come over for play dates all the time. My husband jokes, he's like, you like dogs more than people. He's not lying. It's true. It's not, I'm even going to deny that.
Yeah, I have 3 right now, and my husband is like, 3 is as many as we can handle. You cannot get any more dogs, but yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I feel very sad. I think I've decided what it really is that I always need a toddler around. Like my kids are grown. My youngest is 14. I need that little bit of chaos in my life, that
Yeah.
cute little chaos. And now it's dogs instead of kids.
I think I kind of identify with that. As our kids get older, it's like, well, we'll just, and what's a home without a dog? I mean, you guys can say in the comments what kind of dogs you guys have. I know there's a lot of you watching right now, and um, what I have mutts, like rescue mutts. So
Mine too. All three of mine are
they're
rescues.
all like, well, I say my two, but it's my neighbor dog. But I watch her a lot, so she's here for like 9 days this stretch, so she might as well just live here. But my other one's a Boston Terrier. Actually, I took a page out of your playbook unintentionally, and I have my dog on the cover of mine.
I love that.
Yeah, all my books have some sort of dogs in it. I don't know. I think it's quite great with marketing because every time I see one of your books, I'm like, oh, I need it. It has a dog on it. I need it. It's
Yeah, I think we also write what we know. And if you love dogs and you have dogs around all the time, it feels weird to write a book where nobody has a pet.
well, it's also really hard because I always forget to feed them and water them and take care of them. I'm like, oh crap. I do that with kids too. And the editor's like, no moppets because you forget them. And then she joked, do you really take care of your 4 kids in real life? I'm like, of course I do. And she is, your writing speaks differently.
See, the ones in the books don't like remind you that it is 9 p.m. and it is time
Yeah.
for dinner. Like
Yeah.
my chihuahua does. She's somewhere in here. Yeah. But actually the funny thing is in the next book, there's a big like scene around feeding the dog. So
You've
so
worked it in.
yeah, we know the Grand Pyrenees gets fed.
Oh, they'll let you know. They'll let you know. They're big, real big. Also, they're not afraid of nothing.
No.
My neighbor has one, and we live kind of in the woods. And on my camera out front, it like motion detected an animal, and I'm like, oh, what do we have? Usually it's a cat, sometimes a raccoon, and it was a giant coyote, and it went around the corner. I mean, huge, like German Shepherd size. It was really big. And it went around the corner and it hit the Great Pyrenees and it said nope, and it went back into the woods. It was like, not today. No, we're good.
Yeah.
M. Salim says, I love the series. Tuning in from Cambodia. Welcome. 12 hours ahead. You are dedicated. That is late at night. What is your favorite Lexi Blake book, M. Salim? I'm loving Three to Ride right now, but you've written so many amazing books. So where did your love of reading and writing begin for those new watching that are just finding you?
Um, I was a kid. When I was a kid, I started making up stories. I've always done it. Um, I I think my parents kind of instilled the reading part in me because they were constantly reading all the time. The writing part, I think you kind of just are or you aren't.
Yeah.
Like, you um but I did it from a very young age. I kind of lived in my own world. The one in my head was way more interesting than the one on the outside. So
Yeah. I didn't know that was a thing. I thought everyone did that, like
mhm,
wrote stories in their heads.
yeah.
And I was talking to one of my friends about it one time, and they're like, we don't do that. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't do that?
And some writers, I found this utterly fascinating. Some writers don't see it play out like a movie in their head.
Do you?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, everything's cinematically for me. Yeah. I think that's how they really come alive. I think I can tell the difference when I read books, whether
Mhm.
the authors do that or not. And not in a bad way, like one's good and one's not good. It's just different.
Yeah, it's different.
But it's not that you can't see them better or see them less, but I can definitely tell when I read a book, I can feel it. I don't know.
Mhm.
Do you feel like that too?
Absolutely. There are some writers who I almost immediately connect with, and I would bet it's because we have the same, like, almost filter that we write through.
Yes.
I can immediately tell, like, within 2 pages, am I going to race through this book or not? Now, there are other writers who I don't immediately connect with, who at the end of the day, I just love their work,
Yeah.
but it might take me a little bit more time to get in the flow of where they're writing from, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I'm an avid reader too, and I feel the same. I feel like there's just, and thank goodness that we're all built so different and write so different, because otherwise, how boring would it be?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are you currently working on?
I am finishing up the book called The Dumb Who Came In From the Cold, which is book 5 of Masters Mercenaries Reloaded.
Yeah, I think I have one of those right here.
I,
Yep, I do.
yes, yeah, I never want to do this to myself again, ever.
Oh, oh.
Now, it's one where, so in the very first book, I introduced, and this is a character, Kyle Hawthorne showed up in The Dom Who Loved Me, book 1.
Mm-hmm.
He was the heroine's kid. This is how long I've been writing this series. He was the heroine's kid. Now he's all grown up, gone through his own trouble. He comes back and he works for McKay Taggart, and he falls like madly in love with this woman. But it happens like over the course of these 4 books, and then something terrible happens, and you know, but now I have to figure out how to retell their love story without going so that you see them falling in love, not in the background. You actually see them falling in love, but without just rehashing what happened in the first 4 books. It's terrible. Don't do this to yourself, people. It's awful.
That's on another level of skill. I'm not there.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have that skill. I like maybe
I think
I'm
you do. I mean, reading
myself.
your wide variety of books, you have it. You can do it. I don't know that I can, but man, I think you can do it.
It's almost done, and like it's almost done, and I've got maybe 4 more days of writing left. I'm very excited to be done.
That's a good way to kick off Thanksgiving. Is like
Yes, it's to
that
be
draft
done.
is done.
Mm-hmm.
And then the
That
reindeer games begin when you edit.
oh, I don't even want to think about that part right now.
Nope,
Ugh.
we're not going to think about that. We're going to think about pie. We're going
Pie,
to
yes.
think about
I
pie.
spent
And
a whole week just making pie.
oh, that's amazing. My daughter's doing a taste testing of pie this week in library. They're having books and pie. I'm like, you guys are living your best life.
That's right.
Living your best life for sure. That's amazing. So, what are you currently reading right now?
I just finished up reading Kate Roberts' Neon Gods, which is amazing. And I'm probably going to go ahead and go to the second one because that's what I can do next week too. Is I can read
Yeah,
more.
you can read.
But I've done a lot this year. It was kind of a rough year so far, but I've done a lot of like going back and comfort reading,
Mm-hmm.
which for me is weird because like one of my big comfort reads is a book called The Relic by Lincoln and Child, which is one of the greatest horror novels ever written. But yeah, I've done a lot of, like I said, I've done a lot of rereading to where, because when you're, I think a lot of times when readers are in like some kind of personal turmoil, or like with me it was health issues, we kind of want to know exactly what we're getting, even when we do know exactly what we're getting, like in a romance novel, we want to know what that is. So yeah, that's what I've been doing a lot of,
Thank
reading some
goodness
JR.
for romance,
Yeah.
because romance, true romance with the happily ever after, you'll see it called HEA if you've never seen that. Um, you know when life is gone to crap, you know you're going to get that happily ever after when you read a book.
Exactly.
And when there's so many variables in life that we can't control, health wise, family wise, society wise, anywhere wise, you get that with romance, and it's that tried and true comfort of, all right, we're going to bring it back around full circle. We're going to do okay. We're going to be okay.
And a lot of the really good ones, you get to the dark moment and you get that really cathartic cry you need.
Yeah.
But you know, because sometimes we need that. Sometimes it's very hard to kind of, you don't want to cry about your own things, but you can cry about what happens to this character. Get that kind of emotional resonance in, and you know you're still going to be happy at the end.
Yeah. Well, you have handled everything like a champ. I'm just amazed that you are even able to get through and write and just keep going and doing life. You're amazing. So
Thank you.
you should pat yourself on the back. And you're writing a really freaking hard book right now. So everybody needs to pre-order it and buy it. So
And hopefully it's not terrible. But I say that about every single book. So
I've read so
that's
many
never
of your
going to
books now, and I've never read a terrible one, Lexi. I don't think it's possible.
I just think, I mean, I don't know. In your process, do you sit there and go like, this is the worst thing that has ever been written in the history of time? And my husband's like, you're at 20%. I know.
So
Timing is
I really thought my first book was terrible. Like I mean, in full disclosure, it really was. Like the first draft was really bad. And it was this one. This was the very first published one. Of course I've written like probably like 15 to 20 books. They just aren't published. I mean, we all have those under the bed. I
for
wrote
you.
this one and it's really not funny. It looks like a rom-com. It's really not. It's gut-wrenching. It's really hard. It made people cry in this scene. They all tell me it was this scene and I'm like, yeah, that was pretty bad. But that's kind of how I write though. Like life is not all rainbows and unicorns, right? And so I really thought that book was like I had to start somewhere. And
Yeah.
my editor kept saying, "No, it's good. It has a really good story. Like it's good." She goes, "Will you improve as a writer?" Absolutely, but it's good. It'll work. And I'm like, "Okay." So in my head it was still terrible. But I did go back and read all my reviews the other day, which I 10 out of 10 do not recommend.
No.
There were a few 1 stars that were bad, but for the most part, I was blown away. I was like, wow, this really wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And so I do always think, like, I think we're harder on ourselves than
I
anything
think
else.
it's part of the writing process. I think that I worry that one day I ever get to about halfway through and I'm like, this is a great book. This is the
Mhm.
one.
The
This is
problem
it.
is you have to be
My
willing to be good to be great. And I had to be willing to be good to be great. And that was what I was aiming at with that was this is good enough. Done is better than perfect. And someday, hopefully someday, I'll be on your level where I can write clever books with really hard, going through, just different point of view, just what you're doing right now that we talked about. Sounds really hard, by the way, but you have to be willing to be good or just okay to even get great. And so I feel like you're at the great level now.
Oh, thank
But you
you.
may not see it because you're still in the trenches, like writing the books and writing the weird first drafts where your editor's like, "What are you doing with this?" We're not going there. We're going here. And so you know what I'm talking about when those notes come back and you just cackle at your desk. You're like, "I don't even know what I meant to say there either." And but you have to be willing to be okay, to be great. And for those
That's a
that take that risk are in the long game will do well, I think. And the ones that psych themselves out will be like 2 books in and quit.
yeah.
Yeah. So I'm on the 3rd book now. It's going okay. I'm like 75% done, but it's the first draft. It's not that great. Like it's got a lot of polishing to do, a lot. And so I think we're just harder on ourselves than anything else.
I think we kind of have to be.
Hmm.
I mean, you know,
For me, it makes me learn. I always learn new things. Like this is a whole journey of publishing and it's always changing. This publishing world where, 20 years ago doesn't even look remotely like it does now.
oh
Yeah.
no. But that's the funny thing is for for a long time it never changed. Like I remember cuz I started trying to get published in the 90s. I remember how hard like it never changed. Not even the publishing houses changed. It was the ebook revolution that changed like everything and now it changes every day. Like
Okay.
by the hour, it's like noon, publishing changed.
Out.
Okay. So it's kind of hard for an industry that was so very, very stable. I mean,
Hmm.
that's not really the right word. But it's also great because it's kind of the wild west out there.
Yep.
And we all get a shot that we would not have had back in the 90s.
Absolutely. I also think we have so many more books. I remember being a
So,
teenager and there were not a lot of variety. There really wasn't. Either you read romance, like our mom romance books, or you read like Grisham, or you read, there just wasn't, there was the same stuff coming out over and over. And we read them, but now it's almost flooded, but in a good way. And I like it like that because there's always something to read. You you cannot own a Kindle and not have options. And
Well, and not be able to find what you in particular want.
yeah.
Because before, when you only had, the big, I think at the time it was the big six. Now we're down to like four, maybe
Yeah.
three.
Yeah.
When you had like the big six, big five, they picked what you got to read.
They really did. That's what I meant by not a lot of options.
Mhm.
And when you were writing in the 90s, were you thinking about tropes?
No, oh no.
No. I mean, there really wasn't. I mean, I don't remember that being a thing. And so now, being able to say, okay, I really like Grumpy Sunshine. I really like Enemies to Lovers. And then going and finding books in those tropes is super fun for me. And finding different authors that, hidden gems that I've never heard of, that I've never, and they're new on the scene, and then I like fall down a rabbit hole and have to like binge read all their books. so so that's super fun to do. Who would be your top authors that are auto clicks for you, auto buys?
Oddly enough, I know I write contemporary romance. What I read though is I read a lot of fantasy and paranormal romance. I'm really loving Katie Robert right now. I love J.R. Ward. I love Sarah Moss. I've been reading. I've been um, trying to see now. I read some of the contemporary romance I read. I really love Mary Carr and Lila Dubois, and I know they're my friends, but they're also really great. They're really fun. If you want something really hot, go with Lila Dubois. If you want something really emotional and sunshiny, I would go with Mary Carr. I recently read Chris Rice's C. Travis Rice is his pen name as he's writing male romance, and it's male romance in a way I have not read before, and
Okay.
I really loved it. It feels like a lot of times in male romance, it's women writing men,
Yeah.
and that's great. There's a lot of great writers there, but this definitely feels like a male writing from a male perspective.
I love
And so there's something very raw and about it that really I connected with.
I love that. And see, I love just finding new voices, new that's my favorite thing about indie publishing and traditional publishing. They're really stepping outside of the lines now. Those black and white boxes are becoming grayer and grayer every day. I love that. I mean, I don't know how if they love that, but as a reader, I love that.
Yeah.
I'm an avid reader too, and I've been reading for taking my mom's romance books back in the 90s, early 90s, and just, binge reading so many romance books that I don't even know that I ever thought I would write romance, but here we are. I didn't write till I was published till I was 40, though. I just always thought I couldn't.
I was 38. Well, yeah, I was 38. So I actually think that's a pretty good age to start.
Yeah, I did.
Um, we have like we have some accrued some wisdom
Yep,
mayhap by this age.
yep. And, I don't know that I look back at things I wrote like 15 years ago, and I'm like, whew, that needs
I
to stay hidden under the bed.
I have three. I have three books that will never come out from under the bed.
Yeah.
My first foray into trying to write historical romance. That was the first book I ever actually completed. I got to the end, was so excited about it, very excited about getting this out there, and realized that the whole historical fact that my book was built on was not right. It was wrong. It was historically inaccurate. It could not have happened. And decided I really need to just get back to contemporary romance where I don't have to worry about that.
I love contemporary romance. I what you said about that good cry and that good all the emotional ups and downs. I just think it's so important. And I started writing like really writing with the intent to publish when I went through some really hard life things. And
Mhm.
writing, like reading, can get us through really hard things. And I remember thinking, I'm going to write books that have a lot of emotion and depth because when you go through things that are really hard and then you just read all these happy books, it kind of sucks. You're
Mhm.
just like, oh wow, that's so great that everybody's doing so well. And I'm over here drowning and people are handing me puppies. And so I wanted to write things that were hard emotionally, and I love to read books like that do that. I also like to ask our authors, what are you watching right now?
I'm watching The Crown, but I'm also watching Mythic Quest that my husband got me into. That's really fun. I'm like watching. I just finished the very last episode of The Good Fight, and that has been a crazy bonkers show over the last couple of years. I like. I don't know. I'm a television kind of like
Mm-hmm.
fanatic. I love like long running shows.
Yeah.
Um, where my husband prefers movies, I prefer, I'm going to sit down and watch 3 years of Grey's Anatomy or
Yeah.
yeah, but The Crown is this season's been is hard. I think it's because we're closer and I remember a lot of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of odd watching it from another perspective instead of just news.
I mean, the older ones were like before we were born and before we didn't live.
Yeah,
But I remember watching like Princess Diana's funeral, and I
yeah.
remember.
I know where I was when I was the TV. I was holding my first child. He was born a couple of months. He was only a couple of months old. I was up late, and that's when the news came on. So
I'm
it's
actually Prince William's age, so I remember I was at the gym, and I remember just watching that poor kid walk and
mhm.
thinking, we're not supposed to lose our parents when we're
Yeah,
that young. And that was so terrible. And then to see them kind of grow up and go through everything, especially Harry. I have totally pre-ordered his book, by the way. Holy cow. Woo! That'll be good. Spare.
I know that title alone.
That title alone is going to sell that book.
See, now we know I have dogs. They're real. Yeah, baby.
Well, they're always welcome. Our dogs are always welcome on the show, for real. We love them. So, one of the things I did with my friend Jennifer Prost is we wrote a book together called Writers Inspiring Writers, What I Wish I'd Known. And we took all the advice from our guests that have been on the show. No pressure here, Lexi. And I always ask the question, what advice would you have for an aspiring author? And then we turned it into a book with their essay. So we might be doing a volume 2 someday. I don't know. But so the question for you is, what advice would you have for an aspiring author?
Well, there I have lots of advice for aspiring authors.
I'm
Inspiring
taking notes.
I think the first thing we were talking a little bit about this before we went on air, and that's remember that you can always say no.
Yeah.
When this is not writing, in particular writing advice, it's publishing advice, but um, if you get an instinct that a contract's bad or that an agent like you don't really mesh, it doesn't mean they're bad or you don't really mesh or like feel free to walk away.
Yes.
You kind of give up all of the power you have if you are never willing to say no.
Yeah.
And you have too many options these days.
That's right. There are a lot more options that I think people don't realize. And like we said, publishing is always changing and it's a long game for sure. So,
And then
I don't think I asked you. I missed this question. Well, I did what you're working on. What do you have coming up for like the rest of for next year?
for next year, what I've got on board on right now, I've kind of given myself a little grace because I had surgery earlier in the year, so that actually doesn't show up like until later because I work so far ahead. So I'm probably going to be a little slow this year, but that's okay.
That is totally okay. You have an amazing backlist. There are so many books. Oh, there's so many. I just knocked them all off my desk. But you guys can dig into her Bayou series. And I am loving Bayou, like all the Louisiana books. I interviewed on Instagram a while back Erin Nicholas.
Yeah.
She was like, oh, you have to read Lexi Blake's books. I'm like, oh, I have read Lexi Blake's books. And so if you love, and there's not a lot of people really doing Louisiana, Cajun Creole, all the fun themes there. So if you're looking for that kind of book, that trope specifically or that theme, then Lexi nails it. So you're going to love it so much. And she's got some really other great series under, do you still have them under Sophie? Or
It's Lexi Blake writing as Sophie Oak,
okay,
so
you'll be
you
able to.
kind of know what you're going to get in that. And I'm hopefully going to have another Bliss book out next year called Unexpected Bliss. I'm about a quarter of the way through it, so I'm pretty certain that'll come out next year.
And now
I've got
I have one of those pulled up. I love your covers for that. Guys, order this series. It's a great series to binge through over the holiday season. It's got such good, just wintry vibes. I love it.
oh yeah, because it's Colorado, so it's a
Mhm.
mountain town. It's based on the one of the place that my husband grew up in, except less kooky and not as many threesomes.
I love the beginning when you talked about the story of how the series came to you. And I don't want to give too much away, but when you guys start reading, you'll understand. But I'm always curious, like how an author like comes up with a series and a story and the characters and how they really just kind of shine through and make it so that you basically have to write the story or they don't shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really excited that you have more coming in that series. That makes me so happy.
So pretty much more of what I am doing now, and then I might have one. I might be able. I'm hoping to do one that's just completely different and brand new, and I'm excited about that too.
Well, you'll have time to plot then.
That's right.
Dream, plot and dream. That's the fun part.
Yeah.
Not the drafting and the editing part, God knows. But
Uh,
it's the dreamy part where you make the Pinterest board and the playlist. And I could do that for days. And in fact, I have done that too many times. Now I need to actually write the books.
I don't know. I actually do like the part in the editing process when you're done and you realize, okay, it's not the trash heap fire I thought it was. Like, I actually do have something and it makes
Yeah.
logical sense. That's always kind of a really good feeling for me.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
I don't think I realized that until the book came in the mail and I actually sat and found myself reading it. And then, like, a quarter in, I realized I wrote this.
Hmm.
But it
Wait
makes sense.
until it's like you wrote it like 15 years ago
Oh,
and you don't even like remember, and you're like, this is actually halfway good.
yeah.
I you're like, I don't know what I was thinking when I wrote it, but it's okay.
Yes, definitely. Well, where else can we find you and support you online?
I'm at I ooh, see, I'm at
Put
the
you on the
button
spot there.
on my phone. Author Lexi Blake is usually my handle. I'm on Twitter for now. I don't know when it will explode. I'm on Facebook. I've got a Facebook group called Lexi's Literary Universe.
Okay.
Is a fun group where we talk about the books and all of those things. I'm on Pinterest. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. Mm,
I know TikTok is hard. I
It's
I
hard.
I have a 13-year-old that teaches me everything I need to know about TikTok.
Yes, the youth are Gen Z is leading the TikTok way.
And they're showing me and it's like, okay, maybe we can do this.
But on my TikTok, I promise I will not dance. I will.
Nobody wants to see me dance on there.
I'm going to leave that to the young people who can dance.
I mainly just share all the books
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I get in trouble on TikTok because